Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to what is the final topic, but it's really quite a long topic. And I'm not even quite sure how we should do this, but we're doing our mock draft, really how we would kind of like the Bears to see out the draft. And I know that Reese and we've already talked a little bit about our lists. We have some differences in our lists. But I think what we should do is go round by round. I know that we are incorporating trades throughout this. So we might have a different amount of first round picks, different amount of third round picks. So let's just go round by round. And every single player that you have in that round, let's talk about it. Okay, so Reese, why don't you start us off in the first round?
All right. For the first round, I had them trading out of it. Woo! Trading down with Miami in return for their second round pick, which is 36. Their third round pick, which is 81, and their fourth round pick, which is 156.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that we've talked about pretty extensively how 20 isn't really a good value pick. They should either look to trade up or trade down. And I was actually happy that you chose to trade down because I decided to trade up. So the Bears trade round 1, pick 20, plus their second round pick, plus a future first to the Cowboys in exchange for their round 1 this year, plus their round 2 this year. So we move up from 20 to 10 in the second round as well, plus a fourth round pick in this year, which also gives us a fills in for a fourth round pick that we traded away last year. So, and Trey Lance was the one that ended up slipping. I used the fan speak board in order to kind of mock this. So Trey Lance ended up slipping. I thought that was a good value at pick 10. Unfortunately, we do lose our first round pick next year, but we do get, some added value this year in the second round, and we also get a fourth round pick. So I don't think it's that bad. As far as Trey Lance goes, He's got a lot of great qualities. I mean, we've talked about this extensively on the podcast. People always will try to put him into the mold of like similar to kind of like a Jordan Love, where he's like, he's got traits, but he hasn't done well, and he doesn't have all the intangible, or he doesn't have all the, things hammered out. His play is rough, which isn't the case with Trey Lance. Trey Lance, as far as mechanics go, is, in my opinion, right behind Trevor Lawrence. I think he has the best mechanics outside of Trevor Lawrence in this draft. He's been used a lot as a runner. He is an elite runner. He is the best runner in this draft. But I wish that they almost used him less in the running game, because he is so good in the passing game that I wish we got more film on him, especially since we're making this decision after essentially 1 full year of film, which I know might scare some with Mitchell Trubisky. And he's definitely a developmental guy. How I kind of like to put it is that if there's one person in this draft that can be like Patrick Mahomes, which I know we kind of banned from the show, I think every draft comparison is to Patrick Mahomes, and that's a losing expectation. But it's going to be someone like a Trey Lance, because I could easily see him, if he can sit a year behind Andy Dalton, in his second year, really becoming a really great quarterback, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. That is definitely a possibility. And that's all I can really say with Trey Lance. I don't know if there's really any higher praise. There's definitely concerns with him, but really, I think he's going to be a very good quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that I like his ability to improvise. Of course, you can't blame him for his ability with his feet. I think that's a great part of his game. Definitely would like to see him hang around the pocket. You want to see that maturity to be able to make those reads if there's a play to be made down the field. But, when worst comes to worst, he's someone's going to be able to pick up, that crucial third down conversion for you with his legs. So I really like that part of his game. And like you said, the mechanics are great. I think that he can read the field pretty well. Not as 100% polished. That's why he's not going number 1. He's not Trevor Lawrence, someone that is probably ready to start day 1. With that being said, I think that he has tremendous upside, and like you said, maybe has the highest ceiling of everyone in this draft. But also, the floor is a little bit unknown as well.
Yeah, very true. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the second round.
All right, for the second round with pick 36, I had the Bears taking Kellen Mond, quarterback out of Texas A&M University. We've talked about him quite extensively. Really like this pick. Think it's a really good value pick, even that high in the second round. Think the Bears might be a little anxious. That's why they have to take him that early. Maybe a little bit of a robot, holds the ball high. We've heard the knocks. We've talked about the knocks on Kellen Mond. By no means is he perfect. That's why he's going in the second round. At the same time, if given a year to sit and develop, I think he's someone that can really use some of the positive traits that he already has working for him. Really has a good arm. I trust his ability to read the field. I think that, maybe he's not perfect, but I think that he's someone that, he's not a huge liability in that, right? And, he does kind of bring a little bit of that dual threat mentality. Sure, he's not Trey Lance, but I think that he's someone that's athletic enough to make the moves where you're not worried about him being a complete statue, all day in the pocket. And then I also had the 52nd pick as well in round 2, where I took Ifeatu Melifonwu, cornerback out of Syracuse. Really talked about him extensively on this podcast already. Just really like his game. I think if the Bears are going to go corner, I think that's where I want to see him. I know that you have J.C. Hill as your guy. I would really like to see Ifeatu Melifonwu. Just like he's a different corner. It's not too often that you kind of get a big, strong, physical corner in the league with the ability to make the play on the ball as well. Something that really makes me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Melifonwu a lot. He's got a lot. Physically, he has a ton of upside. Could be someone, worst case scenario, he becomes your cornerback 2. Best case scenario, he might even be able to take that CB1 away from, Jalen Johnson. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have mental breaks on the podcast. They're just like, how do you forget that person's name? Yeah, Jalen Johnson. But if not, great pick there. As far as Kellen Mond, obviously I'm a huge fan of him. Could even be a better value than someone like Trey Lance trading up and getting him at top 10 pick, because I truthfully believe Kellen Mond will be a starter in the NFL someday. Really big fan of his. So, it's definitely something that the Bears need to consider. What's the better value here? Maybe trading down, getting Kellen Mond is a better value than someone like, even trading up and getting a Trey Lance. So yeah, for my second round pick, I ended up picking Creed Humphreys, and that's at round 2, pick 10. Again, I like Creed Humphreys a lot, talked about him a lot. I think he's an all-pro at the NFL level, given the right situation. I know that we like Sam Mustipher, but honestly, you look to upgrade any position given available, and at round 2, pick 10, I couldn't think of a better value than someone like Creed Humphreys. I think he's going to help out David Montgomery a lot, and I think that he is going to really help start to build a good Bears offensive line, really starting at those front 3 positions.
Yeah, no, I actually was looking at Creed Humphreys myself, but kind of decided to keep him off. Had a little bit of an inkling that you might be putting him on yours, actually. But I do really like his game. I think that the Bears can do better at that center position. And I think, I think that Mustipher is a good start, but necessarily shouldn't be, what we end up being happy with. He shouldn't be the end goal, right? And when you have the opportunity to go out there and get someone that can be a long-time center in the second round, which you usually can usually get some pretty good value adds there. You got to hop on it. So I do really like that pick in particular.
All right, guys, really quickly before we continue with the show, we have to let you know that this podcast is supported by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and they obsess over their technology developments. They're trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, and we have an exclusive offer code for our listeners, 20% off plus free shipping using code BEARNECESSITIES, no space, at manscaped.com. Manscaped sent both Reese and I over a bunch of their tools and formulations from their Perfect Package 3.0. And guys, Manscaped is a great company. They wanted us to wait until we try the products to give you guys our honest opinion. And it is a very good product. They have no-nick technology and a little LED light, which helps you get the job done a little bit easier. Both Reese and I have really enjoyed the Lawnmower 3.0 so far, and we're looking forward to trying a lot of their other products. The underwear that they sent us in the box too has been spectacular, and if you guys are into athletics or go to the gym frequently, highly recommend those as well. And guys, really quickly, if you use the same razor on your face as below the waist, guys, that's a little bit nasty. Try to pick up something specifically engineered for that below the waist region with the Lawnmower 3.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BareNecessities at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping using code BareNecessities at manscaped.com. Make sure you check how to spell that in the description. That's going to support the podcast tremendously. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Good. All right, let's move on to round 3.
All right. For round 3 with pick 81, we have Spencer Brown, offensive tackle in Northern Iowa. I believe we naturally have 81, or that might have been part of my trade too, and I just forgot to say it. I believe we have the 83rd, we do have 81. Pick, right?
Something like that. I can't remember.
One of the two.
The quality you guys get here. Some of the facts may be true, some of the facts may be false. Deal with it.
It's all good. I got offensive tackle Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa. I think that he's someone that, as far as I like the top part of the draft of the tackles, I don't think the tackles later on in the draft are really particularly amazing. But I think if you're going to jump on one, kind of in the third's still kind of the early round. I wouldn't necessarily consider that mid-round, but if you're going to hop on one of them, somewhat mid-round, I think it's Spencer Brown's the way to go. I know that Iowa a little bit smaller of a school, but I do like his game. Not necessarily the best hands guy, but, it brings a decent sense of physicality to his game, and, you got like the aggression.
Absolutely. And in my 3rd round pick, I also have us taking an offensive tackle, Stone Forsythe from Florida. Now, he's someone that early on in his career, he was pretty terrible, honestly. He really didn't live up to the hype of him coming out of high school. But this past year, man, he had a major breakout season, started playing really well. I mean, he's 6'8", so he's massive at that left tackle position. And while he is huge, and that can be honestly at times a concern because, they play with a different level of pad level, but he also has a lot of fluidity in his play. He is a really good athlete as well. And I think that he definitely, which is why he ended up slipping to the 3rd round, especially in this draft, is because there is concerns early on in his career why he wasn't playing as well. But honestly, dude, this is a guy that could definitely be a good starting left tackle, which is rare to find in the 3rd round. But worst case scenario, you find yourself a really good right tackle, and just a guy that you could feel comfortable with at least becoming a starter at one of those 2 tackle positions, and probably better than Jermaine Ifedi when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think the Bears do have the opportunity to make some improvements on the offensive line really all throughout the draft, and they really should take it. There are a lot of positions of need. I mean, the Bears do need to add a wide receiver, corner, possibly safety. Linebacker wouldn't be a bad add. Anything along the offensive line wouldn't be a bad add. Quarterback, of course. Even potentially another running back. So, yeah, I mean, they really have a lot of places to add. But I think that, especially in this case, you go ahead, you add either one of those 2 guys onto the offensive line. I think you're making it, a little bit better, a little bit more manageable, at the very least adding some depth. Kind of looking into round 4 more. I was tempted to put Amari Rodgers on there, but I think that he's someone that's going to be off the board by then, which I was kind of battling back and forth as to whether or not I wanted him or Spencer Brown, but had to show the offensive line a little bit of love. Actually, have them going with Chubba Hubbard of running back out of Oklahoma State. You know what? Honestly, a little bit surprised on a lot of mocks that he was this low, just because of how dominant he was in college. I feel like even last year, some of the hype died off of him. But kind of heading into last season, he was kind of like a Heisman front runner at that running back position. He can do it all a little bit. I can kind of see why, just because he's not the most explosive back, like as far as like explosive speed or anything, maybe why he fell a little bit more down here. But I do like the game that he brings, and he's someone that's at least been very consistent in my eyes.
Definitely. And I think that, Chubba has done a really great job in college. Productive player. And yeah, he was someone that was talked about being one of the top running backs of the class, too. Getting him in the late 3rd round is really good value. So I have another trade here. The Bears So obviously before. Oh, actually, this is the third round, so I accidentally made a mistake. I'm sorry, guys. But the Bears send round 4, pick 10, plus a future 5th round pick to Cleveland for round 3, pick 25. So we actually had 2 third-round picks, and I ended up picking up wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC, brother of Equanimous St. Brown, who plays for the Packers right now. I view Amon-Ra as a really good Anthony Miller replacement. I think he's going to be a slot wide receiver in the NFL, as he played a lot in college. Not, an amazing athlete by any means, but he's a really good route runner, very polished, very technical, and he has some good play strength. And he's always been a really consistent threat for USC. And I think that he's going to be a really good slot receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think that's a very solid pick with St. Brown. I think, whether you go him or Rodgers, like at that position, is kind of a little bit tearing. Like, do you go for a little bit more explosive option, or maybe someone that is maybe a little more consistent, a little more, I guess, traditional in the way, right, of probably being a little bit more, typical of a route runner as far as what you want to see, as far as, consistent, more fundamental parts of the game. But yeah, no, that's a really tough position there. But I think adding a wide receiver in that part of the draft is something that the Bears could certainly look to do. So are you out of the 4th round then?
Yeah, I have no more. I do not have any 4th round picks.
Okay. For the fifth round, I have the Bears with 2 picks. Pick 164, I have them taking Shaun Wade, basically kind of just DB, cornerback / safety out of Ohio State. And then pick 165, the pick right after, they're going to go back-to-back, trade with the calls that are after them. They're going to trade their 221st and 228th pick, which I think are both conditional picks, which you can trade those technically, right?
Yeah. I think that they have been validated already.
Yeah, so have them moving those 2 picks because, honestly, just didn't even want to do 4 6th-round picks. That's so boring. But have them moving up there to 165 and taking Justin Hilliard, a linebacker out of Ohio State. I think both of those players late in this part of the draft are good ads, especially when that's kind of like later on in the draft is when I actually feel pretty good picking out of bigger schools for kind of just a more consistent positional training development that kind of comes out there, especially with Shaun Wade, getting Ohio State DB, in the 5th round of the draft with someone that has kind of the flexibility to play safety and corner, which also not only the flexibility physically, but mentally to be able to flip between those 2 positions kind of makes you think that he'd be very coachable, very flexible to fit, somewhere within this defense. You can feel pretty comfortable, plugging someone like that into a nickel as well, especially if you want to play aggressive and throw him down low and kind of be a little bit more of a run stop as well. Like that move. And then Justin Hilliard to help kind of build up that linebacker depth that the Bears are lacking a little bit. Just someone that's physical kind of brings that little extra, step to his game. Doesn't hesitate, which I always like to say out of a linebacker. You need to have that sharp thinking. I think that he's someone that explodes off of his decisions. So, just kind of with that merit off alone, I think that he'd be both those Ohio State players would be good pickups in the 5th round.
Okay, so for my 5th round picks, I have actually another trade up. Bears send round 5, pick 20, plus round 6, pick 44, for round 5, pick 3, and that was with Houston. And at the top of the 5th round, they go ahead and they grab wide receiver Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn. He might be the fastest guy in this draft class. He's extremely quick. He's a good deep threat. Doesn't have a lot to offer. Yeah, right. Doesn't have a lot to offer. There's always a couple guys in this draft that you see as John Gruden guys, and that'll be funny. I think Anthony Schwartz could definitely be one of them. But it doesn't have a lot to offer when it comes from as far as like route running. But, route running can be taught to some people. And I think that Anthony Schwartz, with his deep ability, I think in some way he can definitely contribute on offense. I don't know if he'll necessarily ever become a true starter, but someone that probably can get lost as far as how DBs cover him, and with that deep threat ability could be a real can do some real damage, especially if you have someone with an arm like Trey Lance who has some really good deep accuracy as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, you pair him at that position. The Bears ultimately just need new dynamics in that wide receiving core. You know, it kind of prefaces one of my picks in round 6, but the Bears, they have the consistent option in Allen Robinson, right? Darnell Mooney brings a little bit more of that explosiveness. They could certainly add more explosiveness as well. They do need more speed. They had it with Patterson, but never really used it for whatever reason. But they need more speed. And then kind of leading into what my 6th round pick is with pick 204 is Sage Surratt is just getting a bigger body in there as well. I mean, someone that's 6'3", you know, has like a 4.6 40. He's not going to burn you, not going to kill you with speed. But I mean, I just look at someone like, you know, there's a couple different players in the league, like, you know, Mike Williams in San Diego. By no means is he the best receiver in kind of like any other capacity other than he's someone that you can throw up the ball to. I mean, look at Mike Evans. Mike Evans isn't a great example because he has great game all around, but how he uses his body, same way as Sage Surratt's able to kind of box out, had 11 touchdowns last year, which for college football for a receiver is great. Someone that's going to be another great red zone weapon, which is something the Bears need to look into for those post Jimmy Graham years, because we're not going to have him forever, and which is kind of low key a good thing. But they need to be able to find find more. God. They need to be able to find more people that can be a good threat in the red zone, and you know, I think that Surratt would add that in. And then with the 208th pick, I really got crazy here, Austin. I really can't even explain this one.
Ooh.
I got him going QB again.
Really?
QBs.
Okay, I can see that. Who you taking?
2 QBs, because it's the Notre Dame quarterback. It's Ian Book. And
Book.
I don't even like it, but I think that it's such a strong possibility. You just know it's Chicago. They like to bring in the Notre Dame guys. If he's sitting there down low, you think they at least give him a look in training camp and, you know, maybe let him walk. Especially if they're not going to try to hold 3 QBs. But, you know, you figure they at least, you know, let him see some throws. Maybe he ends up making it onto the practice squad. You know, who knows?
It's funny that you went quarterback twice, because I was almost considering that as well. Because in the 6th round, Jamie Newman was still available here. And I was like, okay, that's a great value, but I don't really think Jamie's going to be available at this point. So I stayed away from it. So I went up, and for round 6, pick 20, I did safety Tyree Gillespie from Mizzou. He's got great speed and instincts. If he actually falls to the 6th round, especially at this point, massive steal. Maybe a little bit unrealistic at this point, but could be a massive steal. And then round 6, pick 24, wide receiver Josh Imatobehe from Illinois. Great athlete, does a really good job going up and getting the ball. You know, he could develop his route running, but he's not bad at it by any means. Just another ad. So I ended up drafting 3 wide receivers here. I just think adding some youth to this wide receiver room could be good. You know, what we've seen so far out of Riley Ridley has not been that great. And, you know, Javon Wims
saw him, you know, it's just like,
rarely ever.
Yeah.
Rarely ever. And like we saw more of guys like Ted Ginn Jr. than we did out of Riley Ridley, which is a concern, a big concern, truthfully. So I don't really expect too much from Riley Ridley. So just getting some new names. If we have to cut one of these guys I drafted, I don't see it as a big issue. But if we get 2 guys that are big contributors on here, I think that would be a massive steal. And then finally, my last 6th round pick and my final pick in the draft, round 6, pick 37, linebacker Patty Fisher from Northwestern. You know, I don't think he's going to be a starter by any means, but he could definitely be a reliable backup. He kind of gives me a little bit of Nick Kwiatkowski vibes, but he is not quite as athletic, I feel like, as Kwiatkowski. And Kwiatkowski wasn't a major athlete by any means either. I kind of feel like with Patty Fisher, he's playing a little bit in the wrong era of the NFL. Like, I think he would have been a much better linebacker and much more well-received if this was like 10 years ago or 12 years ago. But you know, he is playing in the modern era. He's not a massive athlete. He's not great in coverage by any means. So he's he's a guy that I think could be a good backup, though. And we need a good backup at that inside linebacker position. And that's why I drafted Patty Fisher there.
Yeah, no, you raise a good point. I mean, there's definitely only a certain amount of linebackers kind of from the old eras that you would be like, hey, maybe I'd still want them around these days. I mean, names like Patrick Willis and, maybe even like Ray Lewis, like ring a bell as that they would succeed in today's NFL. Yeah. But some of the other good old, pure run-stopping linebackers certainly wouldn't cut it. And yeah, going wide receiver, heavy on that. Definitely see it. Love the idea to bring youth into the room. They need it. It's time to move on from some of these players that are a little bit more washed up. There have been depth guys, and not even washed up because they're old in their career, just because how much longer we're going to keep going to bat with them. I mean, it's not nothing's going to change there. It could be a not good fit here for Riley Reid or whatever, but we haven't seen enough of him plain and simple, and something just makes me seem like, hey, he's not getting the reps for whatever reason. Even guys like Javon Wims, great, whatever. We've seen the good parts of his game, but at the same time, has never really stood out to the point enough where it blows you away. Same reason why the Bears are looking to trade Anthony Miller. A lot of these guys, the guys that aren't named Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson, really they're honestly replaceable. That's what it ultimately boils down to. And this draft serves an opportunity to reload there to get some new fresh faces in. Really a lot of new fresh faces all over the board. I think that we brought up some decent names here. I definitely, I could probably put together a 2.0 that would maybe look a little bit different, but I think you kind of have to pick which way you want to look at it here and how the Bears are going to necessarily pick. And I see them probably going a little bit heavier on offense this year and laying off defense a bit, but definitely still looking to pick a couple players on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, throughout the entire draft, the first time I drafted a defensive player was in round 6, and I drafted 2 in round 6. I do think that it's important to keep this defense up to the strength that it has been, but at the same time, I don't view the Bears as really competing for the Super Bowl next year. So it's like I feel like we could address all of our defensive needs if need be next year, and I'd rather get a little bit of continuity in offense, because ideally the way the Bears should play this is that they're looking to compete again after the 2021 season, so in 2022. And defensive players can really step on the scene and show a lot of success initially. We saw it with Jalen Johnson. We saw it to a degree with Roquan Smith, who was pretty successful in his rookie year. So whereas offensive players, especially offensive linemen, the cohesion on the offensive line, learning how to play with the guy next to you is very important. So that's why I focus really hard. And then especially with quarterback, that's why I focused really intensely on offense throughout this draft. And, the Bears have been pretty terrible the past 2 years. Some may even say the past 3 years on offense. So I think that it's definitely a requirement that we give offense a lot of attention, specifically quarterback and offensive line throughout this draft.
Yeah, it's always an uphill battle the Bears are fighting. Same year, same story. It always seems to be for the Bears. Hopefully this draft brings a little bit of new hope to the organization, gives the Bears fans to rally around, because it'd at least be nice for the 2021 season to be entertaining, to bring us something new. So we'll see what this draft brings of us. Other than that, cannot wait to keep looking at this draft class. Can't wait till we actually have some real, draft picks to report on and get those out and back to you. And appreciate you guys' support along the way, 100%.